10 years after I was abducted, I finally escaped and made it home. My brother, clutching the hand of the family's adopted daughter, sneered, "This hick is supposed to be my sister? My only sister is Violet." The word hick instantly soured my parents' joy at finding me. They later conspired with him to lock me in a burning warehouse. But when the kidnapper had first lunged for us all those years ago, it was me who shielded my brother. This time, I was reborn, back at the scene of the crime, seeing my brother in the kidnapper's arms, screaming for help. I turned and sprinted in the opposite direction. In this life, I would learn to respect fate, especially when it meant letting those who deserve it get exactly what's coming to them. Outside the Sterling family's Greenwich mansion, the police had established a perimeter. It had been 3 days since my brother, Ethan, had disappeared. The golden window for rescue had passed. My mother was sobbing uncontrollably, and my father looked like he'd aged a decade overnight. They had already asked me the same question 18 times. "Sienna, are you sure you can't remember what they looked like? What about their accents?" I clutched my doll and cried, "I'm sorry, Daddy. I want to find Ethan too, but I was so scared. I can't remember anything." My father sighed and discussed a reward with the police. He offered $10 million for Ethan's safe return. I laughed inwardly. I knew exactly who took him. In my past life, when I saw Ethan get snatched, I sicked Shadow on them. Shadow was a German shepherd who had washed out of canine training and only listened to me. The dog pinned down 2 of the men while I grabbed the third one's leg, allowing Ethan to scramble out of the car. The kidnapper's knife was thrown about 30 feet away. I screamed at Ethan to kick it further away, to buy us more time for someone to notice. Instead, he just ran. The kidnapper retrieved his knife and gutted Shadow. I was the one they took, beginning a life of misery. As for Shadow, because he wouldn't obey the Sterling's adopted daughter, he was sent to a slaughterhouse when he was 4. Ethan just stood there and watched. So this time, I did exactly what he did, nothing. That $10 million was never going to be claimed. In my previous life, my parents adopted Violet 3 months after I was lost. This time, with Ethan gone, their search never ceased. They plastered his face on TV and billboards, personally traveling from city to city. I had always believed they didn't favor sons over daughters, but now I understood. In their hearts, there was a difference between me and my brother. I needed to make plans for myself. So, while pretending to miss Ethan desperately, I guided them to a small, impoverished town in Appalachia. There, we met Leo. He was a small boy carrying a basket, gathering herbs. He had just buried his last living relative, his grandmother. When he saw me, he froze for a moment before pulling a wild berry from his pocket and offering it to me. It was sweet and sour. The town mayor told us Leo was a tragic case. His parents died 2 years ago, leaving him with his grandmother. Now she was gone too, and with no other relatives. He was destined for an orphanage. The truth was even sadder. His biological father had been a petty man who, after misplacing something, accused the nanny of theft. The indignant nanny had secretly taken Leo and abandoned him in this town. His birth parents, blaming each other for losing him, quickly divorced and started new families. Leo was brilliant. In my past life, he eventually used his childhood memories to find his biological father, but the man was busy with his new wife and child and refused to acknowledge him. His mother did the same. Leo asked them for a loan for college, promising to pay it back after graduation, but, as if in a spiteful competition, neither would give him the money. When the media reported on his story, his birth parents hired trolls for a smear campaign, painting him as a greedy and materialistic opportunist. Leo, overwhelmed by the cyberbullying, took his own life. Before he died, he donated all his viable organs. "My corneas can help 2 girls see again," he had said. "I hope they can see the beauty of this world for me." I believed someone as kind and intelligent as him deserved a better fate, so I decided he would be my new brother. I threw my arms around him. "Ethan, what are you doing here? You've gotten so thin." Leo was stunned. My mother pulled me back. "Sienna, sweetie, you're mistaken. That's not your brother." I shook my head frantically. "No, Mom, it is. Look at his eyes, his nose, his mouth. It's him." I grabbed Leo's hand, my voice firm. My father knelt down, studying Leo's face. "You know, there is a resemblance." The mayor, wanting a better life for Leo, chimed in. "Mr. Sterling, the boy's features really do favor yours. It must be fate. And our Leo is incredibly smart, always at the top of his class." The mayor then led us to Leo's tiny, rundown house. It was modest but immaculately clean, with 2 honor roll certificates displayed prominently on the wall. That sealed it. My parents decided to adopt him. After paying respects at the graves of his adoptive parents and grandmother, Leo came home with us. That night, I told him the story of the farmer and the viper. Do you know who brought you to the Sterling family? Leo stood straight and nodded repeatedly. I will always listen to you. Sienna, good, smarter than I expected. If he wasn't, I could have always found a reason to get another brother. After adjusting to the city's academic pace, Leo consistently scored at the top of his class. At 10, he won a gold medal at the International Mathematical Olympiad. Ethan, by contrast, could barely handle 2-digit addition. My parents' frowns gradually disappeared. They slowly forgot about Ethan and began to treat Leo as their own son. When I was 12, my mother took Leo and me to the U.S. for school, while my father stayed behind, traveling for his business. Our flight path took us over the very mountains where Ethan's adoptive parents lived. I wondered if he heard the plane overhead while he was feeding pigs or collecting scrap. I wondered if he thought of his dear sister, flying at 30,000 feet, practicing English with her new brother. I didn't return to the States until I was 25, with a master's degree. Leo was at Stanford, pursuing his Ph.D. My parents constantly bragged on their social media. This kid is such a headache, my mom would post, always arguing with us about his allowance. A relative would comment, "Oh, all kids are like that these days." My mom would reply, "Does your kid also refuse to use the credit card we give him and insist on living off his scholarship money? It makes us feel so useless as parents." The relative would fall silent, and my mother would be thrilled. The day my mother and I returned, our driver, Joe, came to pick us up. I habitually reached for the front passenger door, but the seat was already occupied by a woman. She wore a white dress and gave me a harmless smile. For a second, I was disoriented. It was Tiffany. Seeing me, Tiffany stood up with a saccharine sweetness. "Oh, I'm so sorry. This is the young Mrs. seat. How rude of me." "It's fine," I muttered, sliding into the back. Sensing my confusion, Joe explained, "This is Tiffany, my goddaughter. She's been a blessing to our family. She said my son, Jason, was going to get pneumonia, and he did. She warned us someone would try to frame him for cheating on a test, so we were extra careful, and it turned out to be true. It's like she can see the future." Jason was Joe's perpetually frail son, the apple of his eye. I didn't believe Tiffany could predict the future, unless she was like me. As Joe finished, my mother started her own bragging. "Yes, Leo is a blessing for us too. So brilliant, but it's a bit of a problem. Should he teach at Harvard or MIT after graduation?" As she spoke, a strange look flickered in Tiffany's eyes. After my return, Tiffany was constantly around my mother, and they grew increasingly close. For Tiffany's birthday, my mother gifted her a $100,000 custom-designed dress. For my birthday, my mother prepared a huge seafood feast. The two of them ate and chatted about celebrity gossip, laughing happily. I'm allergic to shellfish. I suppose they were the ones destined to be mother and daughter. It didn't matter. I didn't care about that. All I wanted was to secure my financial future. Leo was dedicated to his research and repeatedly told our parents he had no interest in inheriting the family business. He insisted I had more talent for management. After hearing it enough times, my parents believed him and began preparing to hand over Sterling Apparel to me. Sterling Apparel was a fashion company. I initiated a series of bold reforms, updating our evaluation methods and design philosophies and bringing in fresh talent. The company was soon revitalized. My father was pleased with my results and gave me more and more authority. I thought victory was within my grasp, but then the unexpected happened. It was the Christmas Eve of my 27th year. Leo was returning from his studies, and I had the cook prepare his favorite sweet and sour ribs, asking Joe to pick him up. But Joe returned with an empty car. A government research agency had intercepted Leo right at the airport. His field of study was in high demand. My father excitedly opened a bottle of vintage wine, ready to celebrate when Leo arrived. Though class divisions weren't as rigid as they once were, some old ideas lingered. My father never had the chance to go to college, and despite his business success, he always felt a sense of inferiority around those from old, educated families. Now, in his middle age, he was finally bursting with pride. "No one touches a thing until Leo gets home," he declared, his eyes glistening with tears. My mother and I nodded. Just then, the butler ran in, looking flustered. Mr. Sterling, your son is back. My father rushed out, ecstatic. Leo, you've made us so proud, but his smile froze on his face. It wasn't Leo, it was Ethan. After more than 20 years, I saw him again. He was wearing a Nike tracksuit, which wasn't cheap, but he stood barely 5 feet 5 inches, with terrible skin and acne scars covering his left cheek. He was dark and gaunt, with an air of grime about him that made you suspect the tracksuit was a knockoff. Ethan stood at the door, his eyes welling with tears. He sniffled, pinched his own thigh, and then spoke. Mom, Dad, is it really you? I can't believe I'm seeing you again. A few murky tears rolled down his cheeks. My mother approached him hesitantly, staring intently, as if trying to reconcile this figure with the chubby little boy from her memory. After a long moment, she cried out, Ethan, is it really you? Ethan dropped to his knees. Mom, it's me. Your son has been unfilial, making you worry all these years. My mother's legs gave out, and she sank to the floor with him, wailing without restraint. My dear boy, you're home. You're finally home. My father couldn't hold back either, rushing over to embrace them both. The three of them choked on their words, a jumble of emotions I couldn't decipher. I hesitated, wondering if I should perform some act of sisterly reunion, but I couldn't squeeze out a single tear. Instead, I remembered the day I was found in my past life. Ethan, dressed in a tailored suit, leaned against a pillar with a glass of wine, looking me over like I was some country bumpkin in the big city. Dad, is she really my sister? He'd asked. Even after my father confirmed the DNA test, Ethan never offered a handshake or a hug. Tiffany had sat at the piano, playing a tune she claimed was to welcome me home, but her expression was one of cold pride. She was as elegant as a lotus flower. Ethan had walked over, taken her hand, and declared, she is my only sister. This village girl isn't worthy. The words village girl stung my parents. My mother looked at my stooped posture and sun-darkened skin and shook her head. The welcome home banquet they had promised was cancelled. They ignored me after that. I had returned to my own home, yet I felt like a complete stranger. After a long, tearful embrace with our parents, Ethan finally noticed me. He walked over slowly. And you are? Sienna Sterling, I said with a slight nod. Long time no see, little brother. I'm naturally 5 feet 6 inches, and I'd specifically worn high heels to meet him. This time, I was the one looking down. The natural sense of dominance that comes with height is a wonderful thing. My tone was friendly, but Ethan still seemed uncomfortable. He looked me up and down, his gaze lingering on my heels as if trying to calculate if he'd be taller without them. I never found out his conclusion, because Tiffany burst in. You must be the young master of the Sterling family. My father told me you were such a sensible child. It's so wonderful that you're finally home. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling are truly blessed. Tiffany showered my parents and Ethan with compliments, making them alternate between tears and laughter. It was a scene worthy of an award-winning drama. My mother held Tiffany's hand with one hand and Ethan's with the other, all three of them chatting on the sofa. The warm, intimate atmosphere sent my memory spiraling back to a hospital room in my past life. Back then, though my parents disliked me, I had won the top prize in a fashion design competition on my own merit. Tiffany, consumed by jealousy, conspired with Ethan to set a fire. I suffered severe burns over 95% of my body. As I lay in the hospital bed, she knelt before my parents, begging them to provide a false alibi to clear her name. My parents glanced at me, then hugged her tightly. Our dear girl, how could we ever let you go to prison? After their tearful reunion, they cheerfully planned a trip abroad to forget the unpleasantness. Every inch of my skin burned, but my heart burned hotter. I lay there, cursing them with the most vile words I could conjure, wishing them dead, wishing they would be reborn as cockroaches or rats, doomed to live in filth. But it was useless. I was dead within a month. Now, my father waved his hand and gave Ethan a supplementary credit card, telling him to buy whatever he wanted. Our dinner table was filled with all of Ethan's childhood favorites. This touched Ethan deeply, making him feel that his father's love hadn't changed. He confidently walked to what he remembered as his room and opened the door, only to freeze. Mom, Dad, whose stuff is this? The walls, covered in trophies and awards, seemed to blind him. His voice was loud but lacked confidence. Just then, Leo arrived home. His eyes met Ethan's. After a moment, Leo understood. Mom, Dad, I saw on the news that a boy from the Sterling family was missing. This must be him. It's wonderful that he's home. This room should be his again. I'll just pack my things. He pulled out an empty suitcase and started gathering his belongings. Ethan lifted his chin arrogantly, like a victorious general, but my parents rushed to stop Leo. Son, where are you going? Ethan was stunned, unable to believe his ears. Mom, Dad, what did you just call him? But they were too busy with Leo to notice him. Leo continued packing. Harvard wants to hire me as an associate professor, and there's a top-secret research facility that's made me an offer. I'll find a place to live. Our grandfather and father had always dreamed of having a distinguished scholar in the family. Now that they had one, they weren't about to let him leave. You are not moving out, my father boomed. He is my son, and you are my son. This family can afford to support 2 sons. He forcefully took the suitcase from Leo and put the trophies he had packed back on the shelf. Ethan was furious. Dad, I'm back. You should kick this imposter out. My mother looked at him, puzzled. Imposter? Leo is your older brother. You'll call him that from now on. He's brilliant and accomplished. You should learn from him. Do you understand? I couldn't help but shake my head. Oh, brother, you are such a hypocrite. You believe companionship is more important than blood, so you disown me and accept Tiffany. That's your choice, but when it's your turn, why do you suddenly assume blood is more important than companionship? I suppressed a smile and walked over to them. This is wonderful. Both of my brothers are home. How about I throw a welcome party for you both? At the party, all our relatives came. Ethan decided to play the victim to get attention. He recounted his life after being abducted, how his adoptive father had black lung disease and his adoptive mother was severely mentally handicapped. Buying him had bankrupted them. He never had meat as a child. An occasional egg was a feast. He talked about their dilapidated house, where rats nested under his bed. He spoke of the girl he liked in high school, how he wrote her a love letter, and how she mercilessly mocked his poverty and short stature in front of everyone. It was the pain of his life. I thought to myself, as if no one else has had it rough. The embarrassment and pain that poverty brings to a girl are just as bad, if not worse. My own adoptive parents were poor and uneducated. They couldn't afford sanitary pads for me, nor did they think to teach me about menstruation. The first time I got my period, I stained my pants and wandered outside for hours, too ashamed to go home. The boys in the neighborhood called me names, saying I was promiscuous, that I must have slept with someone. Vicious rumors followed me throughout my adolescence. Hearing Ethan's stories now, I felt nothing. Clearly, the relatives weren't interested either. Their attention was on Leo. They wanted to know how my parents had raised such a model perfect child so they could learn from them. My father basked in their compliments, patting Ethan's shoulder. Son, I know you've suffered, but that's all in the past. Let's not talk about it anymore. Just enjoy your life here at home. Continuing the sob story would only remind him of his failure as a father who couldn't protect his own child. Ethan's mouth hung open. He was silent for a long time before speaking. Dad, I went through so much to find you, and now you're ignoring me for this fake son? So, you finally know what it feels like to be a supporting character, a backdrop in your own home? Too bad. Sister was merciful. In my past life, you didn't even give me the chance to be a supporting character. My father's brow furrowed, his expression turning sour. What are you talking about? What fake son? And what does your suffering have to do with Leo? Leo, sensing the tension, walked over. Dad, Ethan just got back. He's not used to things. Don't be angry. My father's expression softened slightly, but Ethan wasn't having it. Who are you to meddle in my family's business? Get lost. Leo glanced at me. I gave a slight blink. He understood. Pretending to take a call, he said, Dad, I need to go to the research institute to handle my employment paperwork. I'm sorry, I have to go. He then quickly left. The relatives put down their wine glasses, ready for the drama. My father was furious. Call your brother right now and apologize, he yelled at Ethan. Ethan slammed his wine glass on the floor. What brother? This was never his home. I will never apologize. Leo didn't come home for a week. My father, convinced Ethan had driven him away, insisted on an apology. Ethan, believing Leo should have vacated his spot from the beginning, steadfastly refused. Their relationship grew cold. My mother tried to mediate. Ethan, you'll always be our son. There's no reason for a father and son to hold a grudge. Just talk to your father properly. And having Leo here isn't all bad. When you have kids, He can help with their education, right? Ethan, thinking our mother was the softer touch, launched into another tearful tirade about his hardships, about not even having a decent pair of sneakers for school, about collecting bottles and scrap paper to earn money while other kids played. My mother's eyes reddened. Ethan pressed his advantage. Mom, I'm your only biological son. You and Dad worked so hard your whole lives. How can you let the family fortune fall into the hands of an outsider? It's not just about the money. The people who looked down on me were also disrespecting you. I let out a long yawn. Ethan was already picturing himself in some rags to riches drama, but life isn't a power fantasy novel. I had already systematically transformed Sterling Apparel. The management was now almost entirely my people. Even if my parents wanted to give him the company, they couldn't. After getting nowhere with our mother, Ethan stormed off, running into Tiffany on his way out. She waved a flyer in her hand and winked at him. Young master, if you want to get into the company, you need to prove yourself, right? Let's enter this new heritage design competition together. The New Heritage Fashion Design Competition, spearheaded by the National Endowment for the Arts and broadcast on a major network, was the biggest event in the industry. Winning would solidify one's reputation. I was entering, too. Ethan and Tiffany teamed up, competing as an independent studio. They made it all the way to the finals. My father's attitude toward Ethan softened. Ethan used the opportunity to plant seeds of doubt. A daughter will eventually get married and take another name. She's not a Sterling. A son is who you can rely on, right? My father hesitated. I pretended not to hear and continued sketching. The final round combined online voting with an expert panel. Ethan and Tiffany revealed their work first, the Four Seasons collection. It was a set of 4 dresses in a similar style but with differing details, each representing a season. They blended traditional elegance with modern simplicity and were an instant hit online. Many predicted they would win. Tiffany paraded in front of me, taunting, all those years studying in the U.S., and for what? Don't you know your place, Miss Sterling? She spat out the title Miss Sterling with a twisted expression, the very picture of condescension. She had used that same tone when she reveled in my downfall in our past life. Then, Ethan had pulled her close and said, "You are the true Miss Sterling." I took a sip of wine and pressed a button, releasing my own designs. The internet erupted. My work was identical to Ethan's, also a Four Seasons collection. The media went into a frenzy, sensing a scandal. The similarity in our names made the family connection obvious. During an interview, Ethan put on a tearful performance. She is my sister. She watched as kidnappers took me and did nothing. She could have saved me. Despite my circumstances, I always dreamed of being a designer and taught myself everything. I never imagined my own sister would plagiarize my hard work. Today, I'm not just speaking for myself, but for all original creators. A rich heir, kidnapped and lost for years, self-taught and on the cusp of greatness. It was a compelling story. The tale of the Sterling family made headlines. People accused me of deliberately getting rid of Ethan to inherit the family fortune. They threatened to write to my alma mater and demand my master's degree be revoked. My phone number and social media accounts were leaked. Thankfully, Leo had designed an interception program for me, so the harassment barely affected me, but my father was livid. He slammed his fist on the table. What the hell are you doing? If you can't design, don't enter the competition. How could you resort to such clumsy plagiarism? Why wasn't it you who was taken? All that money I spent on your education, for what? It was the same father. I wasn't surprised. I didn't argue. Don't worry, I said calmly. I'll handle it. I left his study and ran right into Ethan and Tiffany. $100 million and half the management rights to Sterling Apparel, they said, smiling smugly. Give us that, and we'll clarify that this was all a misunderstanding, not plagiarism. Otherwise, your career is over. I smiled back. Did they really think public opinion was so easy to manipulate? Get out. Sienna, get out. You plagiarizing hack. On the day of the finals, a crowd had gathered outside the TV studio, chanting and throwing rotten vegetables and eggs at me. Leo held an umbrella, shielding me. Don't be afraid, Sienna. I believe in you, he said, winking as he led me into the broadcast hall. In the family section, he was the only one there for me. The host began with a monologue about integrity and respecting original work. It was all aimed at me. I smiled, looking at the smug expression on Ethan's face. So, which of our 2 finalists would like to present their design philosophy first? The host asked. I politely gestured towards Ethan. Mr. Sterling. Ethan stood up, tugging at the shoulders of his ill-fitting suit. Fine. I know a plagiarist can't explain the details anyway. He pointed to the design sketches. These 4 dresses are the result of 3 months of my hard work. This one, with its emerald green, represents the vitality of spring. This red one represents the passion of summer. He rambled on, but his explanation was superficial. The audience was still muttering plagiarist under their breath, but the expert judges on stage were shaking their heads in disappointment. After a long-winded speech, Ethan ran out of things to say. Is that all? I asked, taking the microphone. He nodded. Yes. Then what do the diamond embellishments represent? Ethan looked at the sketch and froze. They're just for decoration. No special meaning. I stood up and walked gracefully to the center of the stage. Everyone, please take a closer look. How many diamond decorations are on each dress? There are 7, correct? The audience and host counted. It was true. Ethan shrugged impatiently. 7, 8. What's the difference? I ignored him. In many cultures, the number 7 is significant. Think of the 7 days of the week, the 7 wonders of the world, or the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. If you look closely, you'll see these diamonds form a ladle shape, just like the Big Dipper. Ancient astronomers used its position to track the seasons. When the handle points east, it's spring. When it points south, it's summer, west for fall, and north for winter. So, these 4 dresses aren't defined by their colors, but by the orientation of the Dipper's handle. A murmur went through the crowd as they examined the designs. She's right, someone whispered. I thought using red for summer was a bit cliché. From the family section, Leo gave me a thumbs up. In my past life, I had won first place without needing such a detailed explanation. Ethan had copied the surface but missed the substance. Simply adding some ink wash clouds to a garment and calling it heritage is superficial. I continued. The soul of it is in cultural continuity. Stargazing has a long history in human civilization, and the Big Dipper was especially important. Our ancestors used it to determine direction and time the seasons for planting and harvesting. Today, we have more advanced technology, but I believe we shouldn't forget the stars that have accompanied us for millennia. As I finished, the auditorium erupted in applause. Ethan and Tiffany's faces turned pale. After a long moment, Ethan stammered, Right. The 7 diamonds represent the Big Dipper. That's what I intended all along. I was just a little nervous and forgot to mention it. His voice grew smaller as he awkwardly wiped non-existent sweat from his brow. I pulled out my tablet and displayed the original design drafts, time-stamped from 7 years ago. Mr. Sterling, do you still believe I copied you? If I truly had that ability, it would mean I could time travel and read minds. I'd be a superhero. I'd willingly donate myself to science for research. Laughter rippled through the audience. The host deftly took back the microphone. Miss Sterling has quite the sense of humor. It reminds me of a beautiful sentiment. We and our ancestors, like flowing water, have all gazed upon the same moon and the same stars. That is the romance of a shared heritage. As the host waxed poetic, I sat calmly, watching Ethan and Tiffany whispering and arguing with each other. I discreetly sent a text to a few reporters. It's time. Be ready. I had cleared my name and won the gold medal. The moment I stepped out of the studio, I was mobbed by reporters. They were far more interested in the salacious gossip than the competition itself. My parents were surrounded. Mr. Sterling, is Ethan really your biological son? A reporter shouted. My father equivocated. That's a private family matter. They pressed on. Sir, please answer the question. He claims to be the long-lost young master of the Sterling family. Is that true? Your son plagiarized your daughter and then framed her. What are your thoughts on that? My father's face was beet red. He exchanged a look with my mother. Leo stood next to Ethan, a full foot taller, fair-skinned, well-dressed, and poised, the complete opposite of Ethan. Reporters whispered among themselves, speculating that Ethan must be an illegitimate son. Otherwise, he wouldn't look so different from me. Tiffany gave Ethan a signal. Ethan lunged for the microphones. Yes, I am Sienna Sterling's brother. My father hadn't publicly acknowledged Ethan's identity to anyone but close relatives. It seemed Ethan was trying to force his hand, but my father snatched the microphone first. He is Sienna's brother, he declared, a distant cousin. We have always treated him like our own son. We never imagined he would plagiarize Sienna's work. Ethan stood frozen. A chorus of hisses rose from the press corps. Cameras flashed relentlessly. The narrative flipped instantly. How vain, they said. How vicious. He faked a story to get famous. He tried to claim rich parents. The same people who had vilified me now turned on him, discovered and used. Their anger was potent. The online backlash Ethan faced was 10 times worse than what I had endured, and he had no one to write a program to block the hate mail and spam calls. The constant harassment made Ethan paranoid and jumpy. The slightest noise made him tense up. A blogger found the girl from Ethan's high school sob story. "Yeah, I always knew he was a creep," she said on camera. "He used to claim he was some rich heir and that he'd bury me in money one day. Look at the real Miss Sterling, so elegant and beautiful. How could she have such a sleazy brother?" This cut Ethan to the quick. He stormed into my father's study, slamming his hands on the desk. "Why did you do that? You could have helped me." "Why, my dear brother," I thought, "have you still not figured it out? In my past life, after I won the gold medal, my parents were also surrounded by reporters asking about my relationship with Ethan." He had grabbed the microphone then too. "Sienna Sterling is not my sister," he had announced. "She's just the daughter of our maid." My parents, after a moment's hesitation, went along with the lie. "Yes, we helped name her. She grew up in our house, so she's like half a daughter to us." You see, they were ashamed of my rough appearance but couldn't bear to give up the glory my achievements brought them. So they crafted a narrative where blood had nothing to do with it. My looks weren't their fault, but my success was a product of their excellent upbringing. And you, my dear brother, are now unattractive, uncouth, and have no accomplishments to your name. Why would you think they would ever publicly acknowledge you? If they were the kind of parents who didn't care about appearances, you and Tiffany never would have been able to conspire against me in the first place. I could have avoided the plagiarism scandal entirely. I orchestrated it not just to humiliate Ethan, but for other reasons. While I control Sterling Apparel now, my parents are still healthy. Who knows what they might try to pull later? Ethan is a man, which gives him an advantage in their eyes. I had to completely destroy his reputation to eliminate that possibility. Now I could always say, let a nationally known plagiarist into the company? Do we want a reputation? Sure enough, my father planned to send Ethan to the U.S. to further his studies, a polite way of exiling him. A guy who failed high school English? What was he going to study? It was just a way to get him out of sight. Ethan realized this and threw a tantrum. "Why are you sending me away? I just got back." I knocked on the study door. "Dad, we shouldn't send him away just yet." A flicker of hope appeared in Ethan's eyes. His mouth formed the shape of sister. I felt a wave of nausea and cut him off. "I mean, we still have some accounts to settle." Ethan looked nervous. "What accounts?" "Sienna, I don't remember ever using your money. When I came back, Tiffany was the one who took me shopping and bought me clothes." That was true. He and Tiffany had been inseparable, just like in the last life. He called her sister while calling me by my full name. Tiffany had praised Ethan to Joe, calling him hardworking and kind. Joe, in turn, praised Ethan to my father. The two of them had slowly changed my parents' perception of him. At the height of the competition drama, my father had even approached me. "Sienna, your brother has suffered so much. You need to compensate him. Give him $100 million in cash to start his own business." Just like that. He wanted to hand over a fortune. I managed to delay him, citing strict market regulations. But the account I was talking about now wasn't monetary. I held up my tablet. "Dad, we need to get to the bottom of this plagiarism, don't we?" Tiffany had a degree in design, but only from a community college she barely graduated from. Ethan didn't even finish high school. There was no way they could have made it to the finals on their own. The preliminary designs they used were also mine. Whether they hacked my computer or Tiffany, being reborn, drew them from memory, I didn't know, but they had been in my office, and that was a fact they couldn't escape. My father understood the gravity of the situation. With Ethan's chances of taking over the company gone, having my reputation ruined too would be disastrous for Sterling Apparel. He angrily called Joe. "Get over here with Tiffany, now. Joe, tell me, how have I treated you all these years?" my father asked when they arrived. Joe was taken aback. "Mr. Sterling, you've treated me like family." My father laughed coldly. "Family, what a nice word. Look what your good daughter has done." Joe looked at Tiffany, who guiltily lowered her head. "This good daughter of yours conspired with my son to plagiarize my other daughter, and then framed her," my father continued. "What kind of family does that?" I almost laughed out loud. Joe wiped sweat from his brow. "It's all a misunderstanding." I smiled and walked over to him, showing him the design drafts on my tablet. The designs they used in the semifinals were also ones I created 7 years ago. Joe, if that's not plagiarism, and it's not a misunderstanding, then I guess it's a miracle. Joe was still defensive. Mr. Sterling, you can't say it was my daughter who corrupted the young master. He was raised outside the family for so long. His character and abilities. My father, though disappointed in Ethan, wouldn't tolerate an outsider criticizing him. He slammed the desk. What's wrong with his character? Weren't you two the ones always telling me how kind, honest, and capable he was? Joe and Tiffany were speechless. It was true. Those were their words. Ethan, standing in the corner, looked relieved to see my father defending him. I wouldn't let him enjoy it for long. This is called theft of trade secrets, I interjected. It's a felony. Miss Tiffany, you can explain it to a judge. Hearing the word prison, Tiffany panicked. She hid behind Joe and pointed at Ethan. It wasn't me, it was him. Ethan said we had to win the competition by any means necessary. Ethan paled. He scrambled to profess his loyalty to my father. Dad, I just wanted your approval, so I was desperate to win. I said that, yes, but I meant by any legal means. She's the one with the twisted mind, who plagiarized and then tried to frame me. Ethan had apparently done time in a holding cell before and had no desire to go back. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice hoarse. Tiffany, shocked by his ferocity, was scared but unwilling to take the fall. It was your idea. I have the chat logs to prove it. She triumphantly pulled out her phone and showed the messages. Ethan, I think the hospital made a mistake. You're my real sister. As for Sienna, I'll never call her sister. Why should a woman control Sterling Apparel? Mom and Dad are blind. They'd favor a loser over me. After we win, I'll get into the company, and we'll take back what's ours. The two old fools will regret it. I know the code to her office lock, 111982. We strike first. My father had his patriarchal leanings, but he wasn't a complete fool. His face turned grim. Tiffany, happy to have cleared herself, said, see, it was all his idea. I told you to go to her office, so you went? If I told you to eat shit, would you do it? Ethan lunged for her phone. Tiffany fought back, and the two of them started wrestling, scratching and clawing at each other. So much for the devoted siblings of my past life. Enough, my father roared. Both of you, go to the police station. Tiffany and Ethan were both taken away. The investigation confirmed Tiffany had been in my office. Her fingerprints were on my chair. Despite her claims that she was just looking around and had drawn the designs herself, the judge didn't believe her. She was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Joe came to me and dropped to his knees, wanting to plead for Tiffany. But Leo had hacked into her private social media and showed Joe what she really thought. I should be the Sterling heiress. Why is Mr. Sterling never home? This broke driver expects me to be nice to him? As if he's worthy. Still, it's better than that backwater town. I'll just wait for Mrs. Sterling to come back. God, this is so annoying. His monthly salary wouldn't even buy me a dress. How can a man be such a loser? He should just buy a life insurance policy and die already. Joe was silent. He couldn't understand how the charming, prescient, and generous girl he knew could have written those words. He quit his job soon after, and his family moved away. Ethan was released after 3 months. Seeing the video of Tiffany's sentencing, he became erratic, babbling about rebirth and past lives. My father, thinking he had lost his mind, was more determined than ever to send him abroad. Ethan's protests were useless. My parents gave him an ultimatum: go abroad and receive a monthly allowance, or stay here and be cut off completely. Unwilling to return to poverty, he agreed. As a final act of tenderness, my parents offered to drive him to the airport themselves. On the way, the car crashed, flipping 180 degrees. The smell of gasoline filled the air. My parents were trapped. Ethan, sitting in the back, found the emergency tools and pulled them out just before the car caught fire. My parents each suffered a broken leg and would be confined to wheelchairs, but they were alive. Ethan, it was said, had several broken ribs but endured the pain to save them. What a touching story. My parents were moved to tears by Ethan's filial piety. Son, you truly are my flesh and blood. My father wept. From his hospital bed, Ethan weakly said, Mom, Dad, as long as you're okay, that's all that matters. I would never have forgiven myself otherwise. This only made them more emotional. During his recovery, they were constantly by his side, having the staff wheel them to his bed to feed him spoonful by spoonful, even singing him lullabies at night. They wished they could hold him like they did when he was a baby, but their own injuries prevented it. 3 months later, Ethan had recovered. "Mom, Dad, I just want to stay here and take care of you," he said, his eyes tearing up. "Please don't send me away. Our dear boy," my father said, stroking his forehead. "From now on, you can stay or go as you please." I had to interrupt this touching father-son moment. "I'm afraid not. He's going where he belongs." As my father stared in shock, 2 uniformed police officers entered the room and took Ethan into custody. "What are you doing? Why are you taking him?" my father yelled, frantically trying to follow in his wheelchair. He tipped over, fell to the floor, and chipped a tooth. I walked calmly after them. "Because he's being charged with attempted murder." My parents' eyes widened. "No, that's impossible. Ethan is a kind boy. He would never kill anyone." "Who would he want to kill?" I asked, looking down at my pathetic father. "Who do you think?" In my past life, after I won the gold medal, my father also planned to send me to the U.S. for real advanced studies. We had a car accident on the way. I was the one who, despite my own injuries, pulled them from the wreck. They were grateful then, too, and wanted to bring me into the company. That's what enraged Ethan and Tiffany and led to the fire. After they saw I was burned beyond recognition, it was as if they had amnesia, completely forgetting I had saved their lives. They chose to abandon me to protect Tiffany. I knew how that car accident happened. There was a minor issue with the bumper, but in this life, I had the bumper replaced. It shouldn't have failed unless someone tampered with it. And sure enough, security footage showed Ethan sneaking around the garage. How else would he have known exactly where the emergency hammer was? It was all a pre-planned drama. When my parents saw the video, they were stunned. Ethan was stunned, but I cut the power to the camera, he stammered. I installed a second one in the corner. I whispered in his ear. His eyes bulged. You were reborn too? How? Were you reborn a long time ago? Why you? Why you first? I feigned shock. "Officer, is my brother having a mental episode? What is he rambling about?" As Ethan was dragged away screaming, my father looked at me, his mouth opening and closing. Finally, he asked, "Sienna, did you know he tampered with the car?" I dutifully pushed his wheelchair into the sunlight. "I only found out later, Dad." He fell silent. "Of course I knew. I let it happen. In our past life, when Ethan and Tiffany mocked and tormented me, my parents did nothing. When the police investigated the fire, they did nothing. Ethan and Tiffany committed a crime, but my parents' sin was one of omission. I have hate in my heart, but I'm not a complete monster. I couldn't bring myself to harm my own parents, but when someone else wanted to harm them, I wasn't going to stop it. I was just being like them. Trading the cost of 2 caretakers for their freedom for the rest of their lives seems like a fair deal." At the police station, Ethan was still defiant, yelling about rebirth and destiny, claiming the sterling fortune was rightfully his. I decided prison wasn't the right place for him. A psychiatric hospital was much more suitable. I had him committed. My parents may have suspected something, but they said nothing. They were invalids now, completely dependent on me. Leo entered a top-secret research facility, and I continued to run the fashion empire. My designs became popular not just domestically but internationally. Relatives praised my parents for having 2 such brilliant children. Gradually, they forgot about Ethan. When it was time for Ethan's psychiatric evaluation for release, I was the one who went. I leaned close to his ear and whispered, "Brother, I really was reborn. You were sold to that family in Appalachia, weren't you? I knew all along. I just didn't want you as my brother. My new brother is better looking and smarter. What would I need you for?" Ethan lunged at me, trying to smash his head against mine. "You liar. You ruined my life. Who do you think you are, being reborn before me?" I feigned terror and turned to the hospital director. "He's still talking about being reborn. I don't think his illness is cured." The director nodded and had a nurse give Ethan a jolt with a stun baton and increase his medication dosage. On the way back to his room, a large, burly patient in the next room called Ethan sweetheart. Ethan flinched. The nurse explained that this patient insisted Ethan was a woman, his lover from a past life. The patient across the hall, a lifelong bachelor, imagined he had a wife and that Ethan was the homewrecker who had stolen her. One man would profess his undying love for Ethan, while the other would curse him endlessly. Ethan was on the verge of a complete mental breakdown. I started visiting Ethan regularly, bringing photos. "This is me at 14, surfing with Leo at our beach house. You were feeding pigs, right? This is me at 15, watching the northern lights in Scandinavia. You were collecting scrap metal, weren't you? And here I am at 16, with the penguins in Antarctica. You were working under the table at some dead-end job, right? Each time, Ethan would fly into a rage, screaming that he would kill me. When a mental patient says something like that, it's just seen as a sign of a worsening condition. More drugs, higher doses. The director, fearing he would harm others, had him put in a straitjacket, wrapped up so tightly he couldn't move, just like I was after the fire. I brought him photos of Tiffany from when she lived with Joe. She found Joe's family when she was 10. I told him, that proves she was reborn early, too. But she never came to find you. In our last life, you killed me, so it's normal for me not to seek you out. But you were so good to her. It's strange that she didn't look for you, isn't it? I think she's just selfish. She wanted to see us both suffer. In the last life, she wanted me to suffer. In this one, she wanted you to suffer. Without her, we would have been a loving brother and sister. If that were the case, I would have saved you from the kidnappers. Or at the very least, I would have taken you away from your adoptive parents. Do you understand now who's to blame for all the years you suffered? Why hadn't Tiffany rescued Ethan? Was it because, in her past life, she was too arrogant to remember where I was taken? Or was their bond that shallow? Or perhaps Ethan's post-kidnapping trajectory was different from mine, and she couldn't find him. I didn't really know, but after 7 years in a mental hospital, surrounded by delusional patients, one who giggled at him, one who thought he was his father's murderer, one who insisted he was a toilet spirit and tried to sit on his head, Ethan's mind was scrambled. My insinuations were the final push. It's all her fault, he muttered. Yes, all Tiffany's fault. If it wasn't for her, my sister would have loved me. Seeing the time was right, I signed the consent form and took Ethan out for a 3-day leave. I brought him to a mall where Tiffany, now out of prison, was working as a promoter, with no family, a criminal record, and a low level of education. It was the only job she could find. She ruined your life, I whispered in Ethan's ear, and here she is, happy and smiling every day. How is that fair? Tiffany's smile was just the forced cheerfulness of a salesperson trying to move product, but in Ethan's broken mind, it was a taunt. He grabbed a fruit knife from a nearby display and rushed at her. Amid the screams and chaos, Tiffany was stabbed to death. When the police arrived, Ethan refused to drop the weapon. He looked at me like a child. Sister, look at me. I'm being good now. I killed the bad woman. You won't be mad at me anymore, right? You'll take me home? Sister, I know I was wrong. Let's go ride the merry-go-round together. He said it all with the innocent, gentle tone of a kindergartner, a small, beatific smile on his face, but covered in blood and holding a knife. The effect was terrifyingly psychopathic. He raised the knife and started moving toward me. The police shouted at him to stop, but he didn't listen. A single shot rang out. Ethan was killed instantly. As his